Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all of you for this wonderful diversity, equity, and happiness Congress. My name is Ramchandra Madala. Happy to moderate the session on eliminating unconscious bias at workplaces. As a professionals, HR professionals, we have seen many cycles, many generations. As our previous speaker, keynote speaker, was mentioning that four generations we are managing. Every generation brings their own pluses and minus, their own thoughts and good things, and also certain negative side also. But how we can take all them together, how we can make the organizations to grow to the next level. We have seen in the last 20, 30 years, HR also moved from corner room, administration to boardroom CEOs and CXOs. So that's where the slowly the biasness is getting outdated. But still, there are many stigmas and many biases are there. Okay, for example, I am working as a CHRO. Should I recruit only my alumni? That's also another bias. Okay, no, I should not. So you should only go with the fair and talent assessment methodology and who is actually the top. They are the people whom we need to recruit. I did in my throughout my life. I never encourage. I used to ask apply to everybody, but I encourage a lot of people. And though I am from south, most of my friends are north, east, west also. That's how I could able to travel from Hyderabad to here, and I am actually really this is a diversity and this is a inclusion. Okay, so that's where you can see this how they people are organizing. So there are many processes where recruitment to exit. There is a lot of unconscious bias actually will be there in the leaders' mind because of their the various issues in the organizations, various founders' philosophies or management principles. We are actually experiencing that. For example, somewhere today also I see most of the times, unless otherwise it's a female diversified position. For example, in my previous company, where I worked in Hyderabad Metro as a CHRO. So actually, we encouraged women, and the first woman to drive the metro train is the woman. We encouraged, we trained them like that. So consciously, as Sandhya said, consciously we have to put a lot of efforts to bring the more diverse and inclusive place and also happy place, especially. That's a very difficult thing. People think that, but if you take the all the small wins leads to big success. So this here we have the leaders, Lata, Sagarika, Sheetal, and Subrata. These are the four leaders who is going to speak. And on this topic, I welcome you, four of you. I request you share your experiences, how we can handle the unconscious bias at the workplace, and what was the challenges that you are facing.
So to start with, when you ask me typically about the biasness, that starts from the very beginning step of hiring. When we set out a requirement for hiring any position, the preference for a gender is very, very specifically given by the business leaders, whether it is to hire a female or a male, which categorizes that you can only focus on one particular gender to hire. Eliminating that particular segment of gender biasness becomes very essential for HR leaders in terms of communicating the needs to give equal opportunity to both genders. That is when the HR leaders come into picture. They provide having a clear discussion with the management, informing your business partners, business leaders that giving equal opportunity is very important to create that neutral work environment. And that is how I think the HR leaders must come in picture and be vocal about the need of the hour, that gender biasness should be avoided and equal opportunity should be given to all the genders. That is how we can neutralize the work. That is what
Excellent,
my.
excellent. Thank you, Subrata. And next, Lata. What are the common types of unconscious biases, challenges that you face? And what is your best practice? Do you have any best practices? Do you have any, interventions in the workplace?
Yes, I think I would definitely proudly say that DEI is a way of working for us in our organization. There is so much of awareness that we create. There are programs which is named as Spirit of Inclusion, and what we coach our teams is that diversity is a fact and inclusion is a choice, and how each of them make these choices to help everybody to conquer this unconscious bias. As Ram was saying, you need to be conscious around this unconsciousness. So there are practices for us where we ensure that they are taught, they are coached, then they are also helped in a way that they use these principles in practice. So there is a lot of investment on research that our current organization has done globally, and it has proved that having a gender preference, a positive discrimination towards certain aspects has really helped productivity and also has shown an increased ROI.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. In fact, when I was working with a couple of organizations where I have implemented Gender Equality International European Standard, which is the world's one of the leading D&I initiative, I have implemented and I got certified that organization twice. So that's where what she was mentioning. Most of the organizations, as she was mentioning, only gender diversity is the not. It's the first step, definitely the foundation, but you need to have socio-economic. We used to recruit the people from the below PPL families, below poverty line families, where employees used to come, both men and women. They used to work and enjoy. Yeah. What are the typical decisions that we face actually for the unconscious bias decisions, and how we are actually handle it? Sheetal.
Yeah, so I was just hearing my colleagues as well, and your question I would like to answer in a little different fashion, though. For me, diversity and inclusion basically is culture. It's a value system. So while we basically are discussing about this subject, I think it's a belief system which organizations need to basically decide whether they need to follow or no. And if your decision, if you are aware that there is an unconscious bias reality, if you think it's really there, then you will start addressing the problem. So, unfortunately, and with my 28 years of experience, and over organizations where I have been privileged to work with the Tatas and the Johnsons, where this conversation was way back 20 years back also, I think the learning is very simple. Be genuine, be very real, be very acceptable to the facts and realities on what people want. It's different strokes for different people, and that's what it is. The more we try to glamorize it, it becomes a topic of discussion. I don't think as HR professionals, I'm talking about myself, as HR professionals, I always tell my team, it's something which should come naturally. It should be something which should be a part of a belief and a value system of the organization. And if you do that, I think it's rather simple. Like it's walking the talk. So we talk about leadership walking the talk. I feel if the leadership is clear in their mind, and HR can be an important catalyst to basically trigger this, it is a very, very simple thing because it happens naturally. It's not forced, it's not designed, it's not a part of our strategy. It's clearly what we believe and it naturally happens. So if you ask me what we do in infra market or what I would have done in my previous organizations, no rocket science, nothing where there had to be a push or a pull at all. It's a part of your induction program, it's a part of your value system, it's your mission, it's your vision, whatever you want to call it, and it happens very naturally, Ram. To the audience, I would just like to say one thing that, your culture drives the diversity and inclusion. So at Inframarket, most common bias, the women bias, so the female bias, what we say, we have a Munba plant, which is one of the most, concrete business is a very difficult business. Definitely not for females, but you just break the myth. For me, it's not about unconscious bias. Nobody was biased that a woman can't run the plant. It's just that it didn't happen, so it didn't work. But clearly, we started a plant which is run only by women and it's working out well. They meet their targets, they design. The only change, and because we believe in safety, what we did is remote place. So 7 o'clock, I don't want to have a second shift. Other than that, there were no deviations made. So the biasness from a gender perspective was killed there itself. That was walking the talk. It sends a clear message that this is the way the company believes, and it automatically becomes a part of the DNA. So it's a very simple thing when we're discussing a so-called complicated conversation like an unconscious bias. I think it's good to have biases, no problem, because they only make you aware on how do you want to strategically define the uh, the bias which you are actually encountering with, you know.
Thank you,
So that's
Shita.
the way I would look at it.
Thank you. We have a lot of biases like name bias and gender bias, affinity bias, ageism. Mix old people they can't. We can't hire people more than 50 or 40, and young leaders only we encourage. I don't know what kind of these biases, and maybe community business also should send do some research and get back to us. Yeah, excellent, excellent. And I now Sagarika from Radio City will actually bigger. She will be bigger and louder about what are the best practices they are going to bring. And because you are the mover and shaker of the city, of most of the cities, definitely you bring lot of because neurodiversity. In fact. I was a big fan of the this Radio City, and when I used to drive the car, because when I'm commute from one place to other, there is no other those days in the last 10, 20 years except this one. So what are the best practices you have, and how you are actually taking the key decisions to overcome unconscious bias?
Um, so, first of all, I'll say radio is your best friend, especially when you are, especially if you remember during the pandemics, that was the only source of entertainment, where people would call it de-stressors. Yeah, so we have a very young workforce. And I'll pick up one of the things that, since you spoke about age, so I'll talk about, this was initial days, 10 years ago, there was this little bit of resistance to hire freshers, you know. So, no, they will take a lot of time to understand the system, to deliver on the targets. And there was a huge resistance from the line managers. So what we did at that point in time is that, and obviously it was, if we are hiring the management trainees, they would get hired in the month of October, and then actually they get to join only in the month of April, right? So it eats into their head count. So it eats into their, who will do the target till then. So what we did is we kept the head count outside their budgeted head count, and we hired around 15 management trainees. And and we trained them, of course. We invest a lot of time, both HR and the line managers. We invest about 1 month to kind of train them, train them in sales. If mostly the hire is around sales, so we train them in sales. We also work on their attitude, because they're just moving from campus to the corporate, right? So we invest that kind of time, and we also you work very closely to monitor how they are performing. And we were able to prove that within a quarter, they were able to deliver their targets. So since then, it has become a practice, and we were able to, year on year, we recruit, we hire management trainees. So this is one. So where the line managers themselves come and tell us now that we want management trainees. In terms of gender bias, uh, so we don't face, as an organization, probably we are slightly different, media and
Some of the best
entertainment.
RJs are women,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
why there is no
yeah,
such
exactly.
discrimination.
Yeah. But yes, um, we saw a dip in the ratio in terms of gender. So what we did is consciously and the line managers themselves, accepted, and they took it in their target that yes, they will, because they could see that there's a difference when you're working with different types of people. And we took a target in our this that we will have so it was 32%, and it has kind of come down to around 28%. So they've taken it on themselves to kind of get back there. So I would say that.
The next is post-pandemic. If you see, for good or bad, The pandemic actually given a lot of opportunities for the diversity to bring the a lot of women workforce to come into this one. And also I have seen one Lemon Tree Hotel where the actually the physical disabled and multiple types of people other than normal people, they take a lot of people consciously. That's where unconscious bias completely removed, and they are doing extremely well. Because wherever I go, I try to meet even business manager and I'll ask their best practices. So I found in Lemon Tree, so like that. And also, what are the typical problems that we face in recruitment, this unconscious bias, recruitment and especially performance management? Because every after cycle, every quarter or every year, my employee come and say, "अरे भाई तुम्हारा PMS तो फालतू PMS है. You don't actually treat us equally. You don't give us this one." So they don't believe in. But what are the typical unconscious bias we face and how we can overcome so that we can make our recruitment and PMS system more transparent and fair?
So, when it comes to recruitment, the preference is typically going for the prestigious colleges, institutions, hiring requirement only from a typical institution or maybe a particular academic background becomes very, very challenging, because that is when you are selectively focusing only one particular aspect and you are not giving an equal opportunity to all the people who are probably like, the academic qualification does matter definitely, but then at the same time the experience also speaks a lot. So I believe that the recruitment process itself should give that opportunity equally to academic qualification as well as to the experiences, instead of only focusing on the academic background. That's one of the challenges. Then when it comes to PMS, I typically feel that a person who's evaluating, or a reporting manager or a department head who's having that authority to take a call or to decide, they generally have that favorism of probably something of giving better rating to a person who's having a familiar, I mean, I'm someone who's liking probably XYZ, actor, actress, and one of my fellow colleague or one of my subordinate also likes the typical hero or heroine, just an example. So I might have a favorism towards that person, because probably I have that biasness that this person is just like me, or this person thinks like me, so that kind of biasness automatically comes. So I believe it is very important for us to educate and implement such policies which will eliminate these kind of biasness, and people will start considering individuals as individuals and respecting their individualities, and probably giving them equal opportunity to prove their work, not the biasness.
Thank you. Lata, can you just tell me, especially when we are actually doing promoting the women, or maybe the promoting the women workforce, or maybe the disabled or socioeconomic, and wonderful things she bought that. So, if at all, only IIMs and IITs need to be only will become entrepreneurs. Today, whole startup world is actually engaged with even the people from the bottom of the pyramid to even the top of the corporate world. I see that one good point mentioned by her is actually the you need not to bias because of the institute. You can give the weightage because of their good academic work, but that does not mean that they can only do the wonders. You need to overcome these biases from the day one onwards of recruitment. Okay, tier one, tier two. Then how Dhirubhai Ambani, who did not study it, now employs most of the IIT and IIMs. Okay, don't we should not bring that kind of biases. What are the best practices that you can bring in terms of career management and as well as learning and development? How we can overcome this unconscious bias?
I think with respect to ensuring that there is diversity, there has to be consciousness around that, not only by HR system but the entire organization. So we need to have clear targets. Sometimes target word works, where we say, hey, 3% for specially abled, 4% for LGBTQ community. So these kind, we get lot of resistance from operations team sometime. Oh, madam, handling women is only challenge. Now you're saying get this kind of variety of people, and then how do we manage them? So we worked with our design teams also to ensure that infrastructure for the third gender or LGBTQ community was taken care. We realized that they needed washrooms, they needed change rooms, and then we worked separately with the design team to ensure that the building was conducive enough for this workforce to work. So I think it starts with that thinking with a holistic view. It's just not that, oh, I hired, I sensitized, but are we actually looking at their care, well being throughout the entire process? I think that's very important. That's where your recruitment and your consciousness around ensuring that there is really an inclusion from extended genders as well. So I think that's something that consciously we need to work around. And specifically with women and how do we grow them? I think there has to be, as I mentioned, positive discrimination towards how we are treating them. Sometimes same treatment, though we say it's equality, but I think some equity needs to be positively done so that they can be taken care. There may be some conditions which needs to be taken care in terms of their stretching of time or some accommodations that you also made around the timing. So I think that gives little more productivity and ensuring that there is real inclusion towards.
Thank you, Lata. And here, when you are actually spoke about Group, and Sudha Narayanamurthy is the best example where she wrote a letter and got her job. And that's how Tatas and many organizations these days actually not discriminating women or maybe this one. But as we said, more inclusive workforce is going to bring the more diversity at the workplace. And what are the, see, and uh, today retention is the new recruitment. Okay, we know that as HR professionals. But what kind of unconscious bias problems we face in retention and how we can handle positively?
So the common ones are, you we say, gender bias or age bias, like we are saying. I think if, to your earlier question of even the performance as well as the recruitments, I think affinity bias and the halo effect are the larger problems in an organization. They cause the stress or the environment corruption in the environment really. So these are the two biases which generally I have seen cause more problem because it's easier for us to eradicate the gender bias or an age bias. So by the way, our leadership team itself, all of them are 50 plus easily. Okay. So that's a phenomena which is actually translating into how we want to do it. But I think the work, maximum work, needs to happen in the area of the leadership itself. When your leadership understands the cultural and the emotional intelligence, they have that built in them, then it's very easy because they are transferring it back to their teams. So, from a hiring perspective, if they believe that there is a value if you hire somebody who are specially abled, or if you're hiring some women or a mix of a men and women gender, the biases net get eradicated. In terms of the affinity and the biasness which could be caused due to the halo effect, during the time of promotions, it's always your salesperson who has done best in the last quarter is the best person for the year. So, a critical incident, that means recording your data right from the first quarter till the last quarter, and an HR person sitting and having conversations, asking the right questions, is also an eye opener to the business. Normally, I think HR underplay their role. The importance of the chair where they are. They say HR BPs, HR business partners, is such a used and killed phenomenon word that I sometimes feel myself a little embarrassed to go and say I'm an HR BP to business. It needs conviction. It needs basically an idea where you have to convince bhai ki I'm an HR BP. But the fact is that if the business says that they want HR to be there during their review or during their promotion assessment or people assessment, it's happened. I don't need to prove. I don't need to be justifying the position of an HR. And I think during promotions, during increments, during assessments, during discussion of a development plan, when you want to send people for development, your sponsorship programs, etc., it's normally, the program gets over at 8 o'clock and she'll have to travel. She's got a kid, yeah, you can't do that. But I think that's the time where you have to ask the question, but did she tell you that? Did she, these kind of the probing questions or counter questions, if I may say, are the ones which are going to eradicate any kinds of biasness, you know. The easier ones, like I said, is gender. I mean, that's not no brainer. We have physically, in fact, very recently, PWD, we have employed 6 of our people who are impaired, hearing and speech impaired. But I think they're doing a good job. And there was no questions which were asked to business, do you need them? We went, we evaluated them in a genuine and a fair manner on where we can add value. We started with the HR team itself. And when you start with yourself, you are able to set an example. We have never gone and asked a business, do you need or will you accommodate? Because then it's not fair to the people whom you're getting into the organization. It's very unfair on them. So I kept all the 4 people with HR, worked for 2 months. They did a phenomenal job. They brought about the change. We guided them, mentored them. And then the businesses came and said, Yaar, can you help us also? So the driver needs to be at a different place. The pull points need to be there. So if you press the right buttons, you on the right lights.
Thank you.
That's the philosophy I would
Wonderful,
carry.
wonderful. Give a clap to her.
I would just
Next,
like to add a
yeah,
point
please.
here. So, in terms of specially abled, we also have about 20 of them in one of our site, and then there was this intention where I wanted to connect with them, and I said we are going to meet, and they are all speech and hearing impaired, and I started sitting there, and then first time I realized that my skill, my experience would not help there because I cannot speak with them. Now whatever I'm telling, they cannot understand. Now I went there, but I did not know what to do. But I think the best part was they just took their smartphones, they kind of texted, they used all the features of the smartphone and made me inclusive. And then they asked me, what do you need? So I think, I think it's such moments that really help us as an eye opener. Then how the meeting went, they said what are the challenges they were going through. They made me comfortable. They taught me so many sign languages. I think it was just an eye opener moment for me.
Thank you, Lata, for sharing nice experience. And see, as you know that the bias, one of the key bias I was working with one of the company where operation maintenance people, operations are drivers. They are also BTech, mechanical, electrical, and electronics, and maintenance also same. But our MD and our operations and maintenance team have a bias that operations people cannot become maintainers, maintainers cannot become operations. See, this is the big bias most of the leaders will carry, and we need to break it. Because an HR can be a good mentor, coach, and also create a lot of EQ to the leaders. Do you say that most of the leaders will have excellent EQ, business leaders, but they think more logically than emotionally. That's where logic misses, the magic works. Okay, that's where the HR is going to bring a lot of magic. Okay, so I started discussing with my business heads and also leaders, and I made them to take the decision. And after that, there's a huge retention is happened in the next 6 months. So I want Sagarika or some everybody to share some of your experience. How did you influence? I want anecdotes and experience. Okay, some experience where you are actually maybe had a debate, discussion, influence, where you can change the leadership mindset to the new paradigm, and made your workforce to overcome these kind of unconscious bias and made it more inclusive workplace. Already you shared one, but still.
Yeah, I shared the gender. This is again some time back, so uh, what I noticed that, the line managers, they would constantly, oh, I need higher, senior level people, even if uh, they have lost a junior level person, they would ask for a senior level resource. So obviously that would impact the cost of the organization, and also that would also impact the growth for the people who are at junior level who have been performing. Yeah? So couple of times I myself, if you are looking at hiring someone, a senior manager, you have this manager who is performing, year on year. What about that person's growth? Okay. So a couple of times I kind of uh, led them to that. But obviously, when someone is speaking to you, then you would get to know. So one of the things that we have done is that uh, it is mandatory for, so we have a people development KRA for all the managers, senior managers. So we built that. Okay. In that, we have given them a target of ensuring that they are developing at least 2 people in their team. Okay.
Excellent.
And so we capture, so we participate in Great Place to Work survey year on year, which is the employee engagement survey, and we monitor. In any case, we monitor when we are doing the succession planning, etc. And we also monitor that what percentage of people within the system have grown. And I'm very happy to say that today all the senior people, senior and even I would say middle level people have grown. Most, I would say around 80% of the people have grown from within. So that is a mindset change that we bought, and we're still working on it because the newer people coming in. So we are constantly working on it. Because like you said, the line managers is constantly thinking logically, but they're not able to see that there are so many other possibilities within.
Correct.
And at the same time, crying that I'm losing people.
Yes. Very
What
good.
is the what are young people looking at? They're looking at a career growth, right?
This is the
And
best
development.
example
So,
for
yeah.
retention is new recruitment.
Yeah.
Unless you don't build in within the people that people are working for so many years. If you are going to bring the best of the breed of the world, if you are going to bring into the organization, is not going to really serve the purpose. So that's where your example is very candid.
So year on year, we have around 10 to 11% people who grow within that. So there's a role change, or there's a, assuming a higher level position.
Excellent. So it's a crisscross, is a vertical, horizontal every time. Okay. This is where a chemical engineer who became actually the Harsha Bogle, he became actually one of the best, cricket commenter. Okay. A street, player became master blaster like Sachin. So there is a endless possibilities will happen in our life. Only we should identify the talent, we should groom the talent, we should able to make them to give the big picture to their future, then only we can. So that's how our excellent speakers able to share their experiences. Here I am opening the floor for the questions. If at all when you want to ask some questions, experiences also you can share. Need not to, please sir.
I'm Dr. Mahesh. I'm from Sri Lanka. We have a national issue. No matter what work we do with regard to diversity and inclusion in Sri Lanka, people are migrating. Right, 30% of the people have already left the companies. So whole country, we have only 50 trained engineers. We have only 4 neurosurgeons in the whole country. Everybody is leaving. Corporate world, all the starting from the CEOs are only left over. Next level have all migrated. So how can this topic help us? Because I'm involved in national policy making.
I think this is not only Sri Lanka's problem, it is every country's problem. And both my children are in US now. And I think what can be done is ensuring that the resources at the country are increased. What is that the young force are currently looking? They are looking for opportunity. They are looking at growth. They are looking at also financial independence. So I think if these can be looked at and can be promoted, branded pretty well in the country, I think that's where you can, I think main focus should be at the young generation. If we kind of control their movement from a country to another, show them the initiatives. I think today India has initiated several aspects like Make in India and several aspects, such things. I think these kind of initiatives can help the generation to look back what their own country can offer them.
Wonderful. I'll tell you, recently some of my friends came US and we were traveling from Hyderabad to my native place, Warangal. And after seeing the roads, they said that Ram, next 5-6 years I'll get retired and I'll come back and stay in India because such a wonderful roads. So it's all only the diversity inclusion is the maybe 20% problem. It's a more economic policy and leadership problem at the country level. For India, 1992, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao started liberalization. That's where the country now started flourishing, and today we are actually experiencing the fruits. That's the leadership level. One has to take the call, take this one. We should not get into the economic crisis. And today, a lot of NRIs are coming back to India, establishing the organizations, and they are becoming more inclusive to India's growth. So we need to have a big strategy and policy for the country. That's where we can. And as she said, today generation, the Gen Z, actually thinking a little differently, where they are looking for more financial independence and also alternative work, hybrid work, or maybe they want to work for shorter time, want to enjoy more. That kind of avenues are there in the country. That's a big challenge that we need to encourage.
Also, flip side is how do you attract more people to your country? Also, to ensure that
No, that's where we need to have. This is where she was actually speaking about the neurodiversity. Nothing wrong, nothing right in the world. We need to take the challenge as it is, and we need to uh, have a dialogue in what is the problem, what is our strengths as a country, what is our strengths, what you can do, and what is the economic activity that will make. Then you can attract the. See, anyone wanted to go to a good organization, you have to create a purpose. You have to just create a big purpose for the country, and you have to attract the talent. Any organization, for example, today, a lot of kids will go and work in startups. They know that that's going to fail, but still they will get the experience. I worked with a T-Up, and I was working with the half of my age of IITians. I know that it's going to be short time, 3 years I worked, but I enjoyed working with the young people also. You have to create that confidence. That's one of the big thing, and everything comes from the leadership. You have to demonstrate that leadership. Check whether that kind of leadership is there or not. Here we have leaders. That's where they are going to make the difference. It may be Modi or Rahul or maybe the XYZ, Kejriwal. They are the people who are going to make the difference. At the corporate level, we do. HR, CEOs, business leaders. That's where the things come. Yeah. Any questions from?
Hi. Just talking about the biases that you mentioned, a recent bias in last few years that I have experienced with clients and, members of a company, employees, is political views bias. And it has become so huge over a period of time that in a conference also, 2-3 people have walked out just because somebody has asked something about apolitical. So how is it being handled at any level? Have you experienced it? And what do you think, a great HR person could do to kind of dissolve the disparity in thoughts and at the same time just help people to focus on what they are there for?
I like the question. It triggers another thought, actually, because I don't know, but allies, if you've heard of them, are basically informal, casual influencers in the organization. They are there near the coffee machines, they are there in those meetings, they talk for you. That's because they believe in certain things and they are your so called confidants. And those confidants don't have to be depending on any level or any gender, nothing to do with that. They just believe in certain things like not discussing politics in office, to your example, to your question. So I think allies play a very, very important role in any organization to have a controlled conversation, to stop the conversation, to press the levers where required. And I think HR plays a very important role here once again because they must create these allies across the most junior person, the newcomers, the senior people. In fact, I would avoid the leadership team and be consciously create these allies. And let me tell you, it's very encouraging to note that this allyship mantle is being carried out by the youngsters beautifully. They are your influencers and you must use them at every given opportunity, not just for the breaking of a bias, for every good or bad communication you want to either kill or propagate. So I think that would help, in my opinion, unless my colleagues have some more to add.
Yeah, we will just
maybe
take
I
couple
can.
of questions because I think time is running
Yeah,
out.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
answer this,
please.
Ram. I wanted to. Yeah. Roshni, I think very good question. What we have done is, as part of political affiliations, we also added few more elements as body art, and these are put as part of our policies, as part of the code of conduct, and we are creating awareness on your social beliefs, your personal beliefs, and we are openly talking to them and saying that this should not, there should be an intention but not an impact. So and that intent should stay at a personal space but not impacting at the organization.
I would also add that, I think this point also needs to be addressed by the leadership, through town halls. And just like she said, that code of conduct, of course, has, should be mentioned in your appointment letters. It should be mentioned. And if it is a very serious problem in the organization, I think it should be addressed right from the top, owning by the leadership and, you know, talking about it in the town halls.
So I know that Mr. Ram is going to end this conversation, therefore I took the mic before him. I just wanted to say कि any HR जो when you do something dil se, when you are doing something because you want to do it, you want to bring about a change, you don't go wrong. So if you ask me if there are any defined recipes for this success, I would say not really. Whether it's leadership or whether it's the trainees or it's the middle management or HR, I don't know. But what works for one organization may not necessarily work for some other organization. So you have to craft things which are working for your people, your organization, and anything which, like I said, jo dil se hoga, wo sahi hi hoga. That's what my belief is, That's what.
Okay, I'm Dr. Akanksha. I'm from Indra Institute of Management from Pune. So my question is apart from gender biasness. Talking about the biasness, can we also put some highlight upon the word nepotism and favoritism? Because it's today's concept, it's in trend. So is it really being a bias when we talk about nepotism or favoritism when we give a job to someone really known person, or it is a fair practice?
Okay. I would say it's completely unfair, according to me. I mean, this is my personal view. How do you end this? Is by setting process. Any unconscious bias, according to me, is if you put a certain process, it will uh, it becomes a mandate across the organization, right? So some of the best practice that we have in our hiring is that there is a functional test which is built up for each department. So the line managers gets to shortlist the CVs that yes, this person fits. The person has to go through a functional test, and only if they score more than 7, then the interview is conducted. So the and the test papers or the assessment sheets are with HR. So so what question is going to go to whom is not the line manager does not know. So this is one way of like I do it for my own department. I see the CVs, give the test. Only if he scores more than 7, then bring that person to me for interview. Okay, and this is a practice for all my departments. So this is one way of kind of ending.
Yeah, another thing I want to say that most of the times when we are taking application only we'll ask whether you have any friend or relative. That's where the nepotism and as you said, so when it comes to the film industry, nepotism is popular. But now people are no way to accept. They are only accepting the real talent. You find this is the big phenomena after Sushant Rajput's this one. So everybody now thinking very positively about these kind of intricacies and problems, and the more open world is going to give the more equality, diversity, and inclusive workplace to all of us. And I think that's where last one question, please.
First of all, thank you so much for the wonderful insights that you've shared. And in continuing what she has said, that's the reason why this question prompted. Do you think the referral system is a deterrent to the possibility of hiring new and better talents? Because when you use that referral system, people refer, and usually it is somebody they are very comfortable with, somebody they know. and as a result of which new talents, better talents, they do not get a chance. So do you think as HR professionals that is something that you need to look at, and what are the solutions you think you can provide for that? Thank you.
Okay, that's a very good question. I strongly feel that referral schemes or referral policies are very, very important, and you must have those kind of policies in your HR system. But then it is very important to jot down critical points like, who is the referee, who's going to refer, and who's going to hire. Like, you cannot have the same person who is referring the candidate in the hiring panel. If you're having that, then there is definitely going to be a biasness towards the candidate. So if you jot down those policies and you have a clear cut information that who's going to do what, you define those roles, I'm sure it's going to help a lot, and I'm sure the referral part is definitely going to add value to the hiring process and to the organization. So I think mentioning and putting down points which are or probably forming a clear policy for reference is very, very important.
So I would say that if employee referral policy definitely it helps, because it also kind of gives me an indication that how engaged my employees are if they are referring someone. Yeah, and of course, if you have a part of the policy that you cannot recruit your kith and kin or relatives, then that kind of bias is kind of gets eliminated. Yeah. However, I would say that the practice that we follow in our organization is that you can refer, but they will be in the pool of candidates to be evaluated. So it's not that a line manager or anybody has referred, sorry, and that person will get hired. No, they will go through the proper evaluation.
I think it's no policy, whether it's referral or any such close to policies. It's the way you design the policy. And the second thing is how you execute the policy. If the policy is well thought and designed and well executed, I don't think there will ever be any clashes or challenges.